I just got back from Myanmar in Southeast Asia, and while I was there, we were visiting projects with refugees in the northeast part of the country and our flood relief projects in the western part of the country.
ADRA has 2 projects right now in Myanmar. One project that started in August, right after the floods, was in response to the floods because entire villages were covered in water and families' homes were completely destroyed.
The river all flows through a tiny little valley, and the water backed up and flooded, and it brought a lot of sand and silt into the valley and mud that covered everything. One of the villages that we visited had been completely flooded. All of the houses were under lots of mud, some up to the roof. There was one gentleman that I met while I was at that village, and he was showing me around, and he brought me to a school. And when we entered the school, there were still notes on the whiteboard from their previous lesson the day before the floods happened. And he was showing me on the wall where the water had come to during the flood, and it was well over my head. He could hardly reach it up on the wall. It was just an emotional moment to imagine that this whole village was under so much water. Some people have moved back into their homes, despite their homes being buried, and the bottom floor will have 3 feet of mud, so they're living upstairs. Some people just dig out their homes, and so there's a new wall outside of their house. I've complained here about having to shovel snow. These people are having to shovel 3 feet of mud to get to their front doors. Because of the floods, these people have lost everything, from their crops to food that they had in storage. Everything has been lost. It will most likely be a couple years until they can get their crops growing again. Without emergency food distribution, many of these people would go hungry. Rather than hand out food, ADRA has found that it's actually better to do food for work programs. In this case, it's a cash for work program. This maintains people's dignity as they are actively working for the help that they are receiving. And so these people, they go out, they dig through the mud, they get the mud off the roads, they dig trenches, they clean out schools, they help clean out people's houses, and ADRA provides them cash. And they can then use that cash to help reestablish their lives. Another thing that we're doing is unconditional cash transfers. So people that are deemed at risk, so pregnant women, mothers of small children, elderly, people with disabilities, they receive unconditional cash transfers. So they don't need to do the work, they will receive the cash. That way they can start rebuilding their lives.
I visited families that have used the money to treat their sick children. I have spoken with families that have used the money to educate their children because they don't have any more source of income for their children's education. There are families that have used the money for food because they had no food in the home. So each family has the dignity and opportunity to use the money for whatever is needed most in their home. ADRA is also working in the camps near China, where families have had to run away from their homes and their villages in 2011 after a civil conflict.
So it's been 4 years since the conflict started, and the conflict is still ongoing in this part of Myanmar. Because of the conflict, it is not safe for these people to return home. They are totally dependent on humanitarian organizations like ADRA for shelter and for other basic needs of life while they're waiting for this conflict to end. Many of the people that I spoke to thought that it was going to be a very short, just a little skirmish, and they would be out of their homes for weeks at most. So a lot of people left with just the clothes they were wearing, maybe a suitcase full of clothes, and they left everything else of theirs at home. So we've been working with local partners in Kachin State in the refugee camps. ADRA is in charge of doing the WASH programs, so the water, sanitation, hygiene in the camps, as well as providing cash transfers to people so that they have some money to live.
They have no work to do because the communities around them have fields and are also not very economically well off to support the displaced people. So ADRA is there helping them to survive in the camps until they go back to their homes when it's safe to go back.
If you want to help the people of Myanmar, you can go to our website, and we have different options there. You can donate to flood relief, you can donate towards refugees. Go to adra.ca and you can donate there.